You definitely get more flies with honey than I don't remember what the damn saying is now, but more bees with honey than with I don't even. It doesn't matter. Anyways,
You get more flies. Yeah. All right. Let's just start.
But I do know you get lots of honeys when you're being fly.
Yes.
Oh yeah.
I do know that's how it ends.
That's right. That's true. All right. Well, shall we?
A little digression there.
Hello and welcome to the Untranslatable Podcast. We are here recording episode number 90 today, quite a milestone, and we have a very special episode in store for everyone. Today we will be talking about our musical journeys and also the parallels and connection between music and language learning, which are near and dear to both my and Jared's hearts, and I'm sure many of you as well. And, music and language, there are many similarities between them, and we'll be discussing some of those this episode, along with, I'm planning on sharing with all of you a few tips, musical tips and language learning tips as well. So stay tuned for those. We hope you enjoy. Without further ado, my man with the jams, my buddy Jared. What's going on, Jared?
Hola, me llamo Jared. Soy de Michigan. Oh, shit. I also know how to say I live in. But anyway, hi. That's just a little glimpse into my Italian. Wow. My I'm so good. I don't even know what language is. To my Spanish learning that I've been doing. But before I even get into that, please spread a little love. We'll get to that later. First, spread a little love by following us on Instagram, Untranslatable Podcast. Always popping on the Instagram. Twitter, Untranslatable 1, the number 1. That's where I post things like the Song of the Pod. I post the episodes. Sometimes I'll post clips. But if you're want to see the good clips and all the clips, that's what the Insta's for. Or you can email us, untranslatablepodcast@gmail.com, or check out our website, untranslatablepodcast.com. At all of those places, you can hit us up, give us some feedback. Constructive criticism, please. If you want to give us just positive love, spread a little love. With those 5-star reviews on iTunes and Stitcher. My spread a little love soundboard button is smoking right now.
Yeah, it is.
But you can also at the other places, give us some topic ideas, constructive criticism. Tell us some untranslatables, song of the pod ideas. We'll take them all. We have some fun episodes coming up though, and you guys are going to be looking forward to what we have coming up soon. I'm excited. But for now, I'm just trying to keep myself busy doing stuff when I'm not doing podcast stuff. For example, I don't know if you guys noticed, but I'm fluent in Spanish now.
Or Italian or whatever language that might be.
Same thing. I can even speak some Portuguese.
Whoa there.
I've got a page and a half of notes that I'm holding up to the camera for everyone that can see us on YouTube.
Nice.
Untranslatable Podcast. And I've been taking notes, and it's been fun. I've been learning a lot of stuff, and Chad now is going to challenge me later on the. I don't want to blow my load with all my Spanish words right in the beginning of the episode, because Chad now, because I like to put him on the spot, decided to flip it back around, flip it and reverse it as Michelle says, and we're going to now do Spanish words of the pod to make sure I'm actually learning this.
That's right.
And I have a good one for today that I actually learned about like a week ago before I even started these lessons, but it stuck with me, and it always makes me giggle when I hear it.
Nice. I'm looking forward to hearing it, buddy. And you know what's interesting is I think there are a lot of Americans who understand very, very basic rudimentary Spanish, because I think it's all around us in a lot of ways. I mean, you see it on television, you hear it in music, right? Despacito was a huge hit either last year or 2 years ago. And so, so I'm excited to hear what Spanish you've been learning, what Spanish word of the pod you have for us today.
I'm actually surprised how much I mean, quote unquote, knew, but like how much stuff I already kind of knew off the bat.
Right.
Like I didn't really need to be taught the numbers from from 1 to 10.
Right.
But this has been a very polyglotty sort of weekend for me, because not only have I started learning Spanish, but you took note, shockingly, of something on Instagram.
I did.
We had I started following someone because I liked his pictures. And I believe he's actually Portuguese, but he's lived in France for a long time. And he messaged us on our Untranslatable Podcast Instagram saying, "Merci d'avoir choisi mon compte." Oh, Jesus. It's better when I just write it. Comme si c'était celui d'une... We have actually a good amount of listeners in France, and I am sorry. D'une autre enfant, c'est tout moi ça. And so I read it, and I was like, I mean, I got to reply to this guy, but I don't just want to be like, sorry, I don't speak French, thanks.
Right.
So like, I roughly knew what he was saying. Like, I know like merci d'avoir choisi mon compte is essentially saying like, thanks for choosing my following me essentially.
Right.
And so I responded, mon plaisir. I don't know how you say
My
that.
pleasure?
Yeah. J'aime tes photos, which is like, I like your pictures.
Right.
And he says, c'est gentil, which is like, oh, very nice of you. And he says, and plus, you write French very well. And he says, are you German? Obviously, you probably looked at our Instagram. There's a lot of references to German stuff.
Right.
Or he said, I don't know how you even say this, but he says, or are you Czech? Because, there's a bunch of pictures from Prague.
Right.
And I said, je parle un peu français seulement. I said, I only speak a little French. And he said, merci. And I said, I'm American. My co-host lives in Czech, but he also is American. And we both speak German. And then he responded with a pretty large paragraph yesterday.
He did.
And I haven't responded yet because I'm a little overwhelmed.
Right.
But it was fun to even a couple words I had to translate, but it was fun to just even play around with that and be like, you know what, let's not just do the easy thing and just be like, sorry, I don't speak French, and try to and let's see how far I can go with this. And now I'm
absolutely.
Like, oh, shit.
That's the untranslatable way, I would say, Jared, for sure.
Yeah,
and
yeah.
I think we should also give him a shout out because he does have some nice pictures. So where can our listeners find him to check out his pictures?
Instagram. His Instagram is Vitor_Mendez with an S _Pinheiro. Wow, I think I said. Hold on, 1 second.
That sounded great.
Pinheiro.
Parada.
And his Pinheiro is Pinheiro. And yeah, he's Portuguese, but he's spent a good amount of time in France. Yeah, I liked his pictures. He clearly likes to travel, and I don't know, I just liked it. So that's it. Yeah,
good work on you, buddy, and also thank you to it was Victor, right?
Yes. Vitor, excuse me, Vitor.
Vitor. All right. Well, thank you. We really appreciate it. And I have one early shout out before we even get into the shout outs. And this goes to a friend and a fellow Albion alum of ours, Alex. And she had added a picture basically saying, give Untranslatable Podcast a listen on her Instagram story. And we cannot say enough how much we really appreciate it.
Yeah.
We're happy that she's enjoying the episodes. And she gave us some very, very good feedback. Sometimes it's good to kind of get your boots on the ground and figure out, what the people really want. And so I had asked her, do you have any feedback or ideas or topics that you would like to hear us discuss? And she mentioned what Jared teased earlier in the very top of the show, which is we are going to be bringing you guys some shorter episodes and some tour guide series with more specific tips and places to visit in many, many different places, since such a large part of our podcast obviously is language, but also travel. And so keep your eyes out for those. They'll probably be around 20 to 30 minutes, and they'll be very condensed ideas of ways you can travel. Me personally, I try to be a budget traveler, so I'm sure there will be some good, cheap travel tips for all of you in various cities, and it should be a lot of fun.
And the plan thus far is every other Saturday they'll be released, so look forward to that. And we kind of had this conversation at the beginning of the Untranslatable podcast, because we did one episode similar to this, maybe our third or fourth episode, about visiting Italy, because you were considering that. But I think the format is better for a shorter episode, and we've also talked about how not everyone likes our 1.5 to 2 hour episodes.
Right.
So we're trying to be a friend of the people. So yeah, thank you, Alex. You know what made me very uncomfortable though with her? She had a very nice story, very lovely, and it seemed like she was in the bath. That didn't make me uncomfortable. What made me uncomfortable? I did not mean that in a weird way. I just meant that's not what made me uncomfortable. What made me uncomfortable was the placement of what looked like her iPad. Did you notice that?
I didn't look that closely at it.
On the side of the bathtub, and I was so nervous that it was either going to fall in. I was like, do you not splash at all when you're in a bathtub? How is it just perched there? So how are you so confident with it sitting there? I would be freaking out. By the way,
she invested in a really good iPad stand, or she did not hear the song Splish Splash, I'm Taking a Bath when she was growing up, so she doesn't splash. Who knows?
Dude, when I was a kid, when I was, I believe, around 5 years old, I definitely didn't hear that song when I was 5. I was essentially sort of dancing in the bathtub, standing up, and I slipped. And I hit my face on the edge of the bathtub so bad that my mouth started bleeding, and my mom had to rush me to the dentist.
Oh, God. Smooth.
By the way, I was not done with my language-filled weekend. I did one more language thing.
Let's hear it.
And that is go to a concert. You see what I did there?
Yeah. I do see what you did there.
That's the universal language. So my girlfriend, she used to go to Temple, and she still has friends there. And one of them, his name is Gianni, and I really want to be friends with it. Oh, I've talked to you about him. Remember when I talked to you about that party? He was the that I went to a long time ago. He was the one that was talking about jamming and stuff. I wish I could play the song too, but I can't, obviously. But he's also his major is like audio engineering and audio production.
Oh, sweet. Okay.
He's a very talented. He actually, I'll play you the song after when the mics are off, because he mixed the song himself, and I mean it sounds as professional as any song would.
That's awesome.
And so he's part of this little group at his school called Coffee Table Series. It's like they put on concert series, and on their Instagram is more coffee than talk. If you want to look them up on Instagram, and they used to be sort of like a rogue show. So they used to just find sort of common areas around their school. And a couple times they get in trouble by security for not actually renting out areas and putting on concerts in these little areas, and security would be like, you can't be here. But they got noticed by one of the staff that works for the Temple radio station, and so they gave him this dedicated space in the Temple radio station building to put on these concerts. I should have taken a picture of the space, but I didn't. But it's this really cool sort of recording studio room that's got enough space for, if you're really jamming people in there, 50 people, probably about 25 people were at this one.
Nice.
And there was a band called Rubber, and they put on this concert of about maybe 7 or 8, maybe 9 songs.
Oh, sweet.
And I was blown away by it. It was a lot of fun. And it was very, as you mentioned before we started talking, before we started recording, it was very Tiny Desk concert style. And
Nice.
there was, it was really cool. And it was cool to see the production of it, because I'm kind of an audio nerd, and I was he doesn't know that I don't think he knows that I do a podcast, but I was asking him questions about his setup, and he's like, you trying to get into audio recording? And I was like, no, I was just curious.
You should have told him yes, man. What's the downside of saying yes?
Also, we have been having this conversation about how we need to stop being ashamed of our own podcast.
I mean, I've actually been spreading the word quite a bit now.
That's true. You did mention that. I need to get on that too, because I could have just easily been like, I don't know if I'm interested in recording music, but I have a podcast where I do some basic audio stuff, and I'm always looking for ways to improve the audio quality.
Right.
I don't know why I didn't say that. Although I'm going to see him on Wednesday, so maybe I'll bring it up then.
There you go. You should also try to jam with him, man. I'm telling you.
Yeah.
See, when Jared and I first did our jam tracks, also check out our Instagram if you want to give it a listen. Not to put you on blast, buddy, but you were definitely a little uncomfortable and a little nervous about it, which is normal,
Yeah.
Especially if you haven't really jammed before, and especially, if we're putting it out there to our listeners, it's a bit of a nerve-wracking experience, right?
For sure.
Because it's, when you, as a musician, you're kind of vulnerable, right? Like it's really power of the people when it comes to music. Like either people like it or they don't, and people can be brutal about it. But I think you have a good ear, which I think has helped you as a language learner and obviously as a musician. And two, I have always loved your taste in music. And some people have good taste, some people don't. But I think when you have that ear and that kind of what sounds good, what maybe doesn't quite sound good to you, I think it really helps you as a musician. And I think also in a lot of ways there are some parallels to being a language learner.
For sure.
You develop your ear and then you realize, oh, that didn't sound quite so right. Maybe I need to try to say it in a different way or something like that. But the last thing I'd like to add before we move on to our shout-outs is I also had a bit of a polyglot weekend. So I was practicing my Czech a little bit with some people I met. So that was interesting. But see, the funny thing is, dude, if you say 4 or 5 very basic phrases in Czech, the first thing people tend to say is, "Oh, you speak really good Czech," and it's like, no,
this is my limit.
Right, exactly. But what was fascinating is I took an Uber. I was with my friend David, right?
Ooh,
and I took an Uber with David. And the dude was Ukrainian. And so I was speaking a little bit of Czech with him. Mm-hmm. And then when he said he was from Ukraine, then somehow basically him and David started speaking Russian.
Right.
And I am surprised how much I understood because there were a lot of similarities between Czech. Like the word for English teacher is pretty much the same. 5 months is the same and more or less the same. The pronunciation's a little different. Mm-hmm. But that was really cool for me to like listen to them have a conversation, and I understood bits and pieces, not a ton, but bits and pieces.
And I mean, even the fact that you could pick up words is it feels good, even if you you don't expect to be like, oh wow, I understand exactly what they're saying.
Exactly.
But it's like, oh, cool. I didn't think I'd get any of this.
You just start speaking Russian randomly, like David would be like, what? Like, right? Exactly. But I think another thing too, though, is if and here's another early little parallel with language and music. If you start listening to music in a foreign language, you'll pick up on, especially cognates, usually fairly quickly, and it's a good way to kind of reinforce and expand your vocabulary when you're listening to music in a foreign language, which we will have for all of you later for our Song of the Pod, and we're excited to share that with you as well. But Jared, I don't know about you, but I'm ready to
spread a little love. Yeah, me too.
You better believe it. Well, Jared, would you like me to start, or do you have some shout-outs for us?
You start, and then do them all.
Okay, fair enough. All right.
Dude, by the way, before you start, though, it's been a depressing freaking weekend on the social medias. Usually, since you're usually coming with the great shout-outs, I like to just, like, patrol the social medias and see if anything pops up there. It's just been depressing, bro. From politics to more shootings to a rough go on Twitter these days.
Right. Yeah, yeah. That's why we try to do this segment is put some positivity back out in the universe because we definitely need it.
Spread a little love.
So my first one goes out to, man, I hate this headline. So let me try to reword this headline real quick.
Read the headline first, then reword it.
Okay.
Or
the headline
reword it, then read it. One of the two.
The headline is, this is from the sciencetimes.com, and the headline is, African teen builds windmills from junk and supplies his village with electricity. But I would say the way I would rewrite this, sorry, I can't talk apparently.
Rewrite it? Yeah, that sounds about white.
God. Oh, jeez. I would say I would rewrite it as Malawi teenager Kamkwamba, which is his name, builds windmills from spare parts and supplies his village with electricity. That's the way I would put it.
Well, and why? Yeah, that always annoys me. Even though, they're not saying from the country of Africa. Why can't you specify the country?
Exactly.
Like they wouldn't say European; they'd probably say the country.
Exactly. And
Or
even
like Asian,
even
that's
in the
so broad. It's just like African,
Right.
so broad.
Right. Well, and it's even the same with the states. I mean, if you just Google Florida man, you'll find all sorts of beautiful headlines and stuff. So,
That's very
but anyway,
true.
so let me read this a bit, skim this article for you and our listeners because this is a really amazing story, and this is why I wanted to cover it. So unfortunately, he was kicked out of school because his family didn't have the money to pay for school fees. But Kamkwamba was not, he was determined to continue learning. So he spent his days in the library where a book with photographs of windmills caught his eye. I thought, this thing exists in this book. It means someone else managed to build this machine. Armored with the book, the then 14-year-old taught himself how to build windmills. He scoured through junkyards for items, including bicycle parts, plastic pipes, tractor fins, and car batteries for the tower, then collected wood from blue gum trees. And this is the crazy part, but I love that he continued and persisted. Everyone laughed at me when I told them I was building a windmill. They thought I was crazy. Then I started telling them I was just playing with the parts. That sounded more normal. That was in 2002. Now he has 5 windmills. The tallest is at 37 feet.
Whoa!
And he built one at an area school that he used to actually teach classes on windmill building. The windmills generate electricity and pump water in his hometown north of the capital, Lilongwe. Neighbors regularly trek across dusty footpaths to his house to charge their cell phones. Others stop by to try to listen to Malawi and reggae music blaring from a radio.
We might have to pod right there.
Yeah, exactly.
I want to know what that sounds like.
Right. But yeah, so I think it's really amazing that Kamkwamba has created these windmills, even though people were kind of putting him down for it. It's really amazing that he was really doing this to better his community.
Yeah.
Yet, because it's not normal per se, whatever normal means, people were laughing at him and thinking he was crazy. And I think that's too bad, but it just goes to show how whenever anyone tries to push the envelope and, do something that's maybe a little abstract or out of the ordinary, people tend to judge you and laugh at you. But I think this is really amazing. So lots of love to Kamkwamba, who is now 22, and now he's a student actually at the African Leadership Academy, which is an elite South African school for young leaders. I can't speak English today.
Yeah, what is happening?
But yeah, I don't know. A big shout out to you, Kamkwamba. Keep up the great work. And it's really amazing to hear these kinds of stories.
Yeah, and it's also cool to see it actually translated to like not only him turning a bad situation where you can't afford school, where it's like one part is actually having the motivation to do this on your own, just like because you're interested in this stuff, but then actually using these things to improve your community is like the next step that I think is great.
Right.
At first I thought you were just going to say like it was at his home or something. I didn't realize he was actually helping like his village.
Yeah, for sure. So that's really amazing. And I think people need to take these kind of stories to heart and realize that don't be afraid to push the envelope. Don't be afraid to take risks. And also use your local libraries. I mean, we sometimes we don't realize how privileged we are when you live in a country where you have the internet, that's so easily accessible. But, if you don't have those options, well, you're probably not listening to this podcast. But, take advantage of your resources, whether it's on the internet or at libraries. I remember when I was a little kid, my dad would take me to the library all the time. He would always nerd out on art books, and I would get stuff, sports or music or whatever. Mm-hmm. So take advantage of those resources.
Nowadays, there's even through the internet, there's access to a lot of libraries because there are plenty of apps where you can rent audiobooks for free through your local library. And so, like, theoretically, people don't even really have to be buying audiobooks like they are because libraries are now trying to obviously sort of develop for the modern era. Right,
which is also great. Mm-hmm. Well, my next shout out goes out to, it's kind of random, but Washington University School of Medicine researchers, because they are now leading an international team in a long-term effort to eradicate tropical diseases. And so one of them is called elephantitis. And I'm trying to look at the other one.
I have elephantitis of the teeth.
And river, God damn it, Jared. and river blindness as well. So these are both parasitic diseases that basically sound like it's straight out of a horror movie, right? So insects will bite humans and transmit the tiny parasitic worms, which will cause very debilitating illnesses. And so the Washington University of Medicine, these researchers have received $24.7 million in grant funding from. So this is another kind of mini shout out within a shout out from the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation.
Oh, nice. Yeah.
So this is
Spread
really
the
amazing,
love.
and hopefully they'll be able to really make some serious changes and come up with some solutions to these diseases and eradicate them. That would be absolutely amazing.
Bill Gates is a great representation of a rich person because he, it's so weird when you look at people like Jeff Bezos, or it's like, you have more than enough money for like 60 lifetimes.
Right.
And it's like, Bill Gates gives away, it seems like the majority of his money, and I'm sure he's still living quite all right. You know, it's like, these people are so rich that you can give away billions, hundreds of millions, and still live comfortably, yet a lot of them don't do it.
Right. Exactly. And my last shout out goes out to a woman named Mona Schaefer, who is now 96 years old, and she still plays trumpet for a band which was founded in 1951.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah. So the story is Mona Schaefer is a part of a group, I believe, called the Serenaders. And the band was founded by the local Masons. At the time, they actually didn't allow women to perform, but she was, so the Moonlight Serenaders. And so the group now has been, playing for 68 years, and there's 20 members in the band, and the ages obviously are very wide range. But what's really amazing about Mona Schaefer is she has played more gigs in more bands than most of her bandmates combined, and she's still going strong.
Man, that's great. And that's not to get ahead of myself, but that's another good. We've talked a lot about how learning a language is great for your mind, and when you're older, and the instrument's the same thing. It has the same sort of effect on your mind. It keeps you sharp way later into your life if you're keeping it's like a workout, essentially working out for your brain.
Definitely. Absolutely. So big shout out to you, Mona Schaefer.
Yeah.
Keep on keeping on. Keep on swinging and playing that beautiful jazz music.
This ham horn, that's actually Mona Schaefer.
Oh, that's great. Oh, that's too funny. Well, Jared, do you happen to know what time it is?
Ooh, right on time.
As always.
The unmistakable cuckoo of the untranslatable owl coming at you. I'll start. Why not? My first one is it's Portuguese, and it's I believe from Portugal, if I'm not mistaken. Mm-hmm. But don't quote me on that. Partir a luica toda, and it means breaking all the dishes.
Breaking all the dishes. Is it like burning bridges?
No, but I understand why you would think that. It's actually more of a positive thing.
Breaking all the dishes. Huh. So is it... Do we have like a similar English untranslatable? Or a phrase? Or not really? No? All right.
No, I'm sure we do, but I just can't think of it off the top of my head.
Breaking all the dishes. Is this like...
So can I give you let's say I'll just give you an example.
Okay.
Or unless you're about to guess.
I mean, I guess it would be like when something's just awesome, like a great party or something. Ooh, all right.
It's not a great party though. You were right when you said awesome. Not really a great party. I guess you could do it though. You say like this party's breaking all the dishes. So for example, you and I say we were invited to a party, and I'm like, I'll guess I'll go to this party, but I'm not thrilled about it. And then we go there and we're jamming. We're like, oh shit, this party's breaking all the dishes.
Oh man, we need to start using that one.
So that's it's when something exceeds your expectations and it's amazing.
Okay. Oh, nice. It's kind of like that one. That untranslatable breaking all the dishes makes me think of when you're invited to something kind of last minute. You're like, should I go? Should I not go? And then you decide to go, and it ends up exactly just exceeding your expectations. You have a great time, right?
As someone that often tries to convince myself not to go to things, by the way, tomorrow when I post, did you see the clip that I posted the other day of on our
You
Instagram?
talking shit?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, I did.
Okay, that was hilarious. You'll love what I post tomorrow. I mean, I won't get specific because it won't make sense to other people. You'll love what I post tomorrow. But,
I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah, but when I usually decide to go to some sort of event or something like that, there's usually a whole lot of I don't want to do this. I don't want to do this. And what's always what I always remind myself in the back of my head, or is like it's never like. The outcome is never anything worse than, oh, that was pretty good. Like I've never come out of it like, oh my God, that was the worst. Why did I waste that time?
Right.
And I'm always breaking all the dishes with myself. It's just, you have to, get out of the house.
Exactly. Well, Jared, to celebrate your journey into Spanish learning dumb, if that's a word.
Sí.
I have 2 Spanish ones for you, but don't worry, listeners, I also have a Czech one as well. So we'll start off with Spanish, though. We'll do a nice little Spanish-Czech sandwich today. So, Jared, the first one I'll give you is it's one word, and it's tutear.
So I'm going to take a guess. I love how I'm already a professional. Is the tute part something to do with like all or like everything, something like that?
So no, Jared. In Spanish, as hopefully you have already learned, you have tú and usted.
I did ask about verb tenses, and
nice.
yeah, I got the response you were looking for. So that's like the formal, formal you.
Tú is informal you. Yeah.
Okay. All right. What does it mean? Obviously, I don't know.
It means to treat someone informally by addressing them as tú instead of the more formal usted.
Oh, it's like dutzen.
Yeah, pretty much.
Okay. Tutear.
Yeah.
So is that like what if you were to like usted someone, they would say back to you tutear?
Great question. This is one you're gonna have to ask your lady because I'm not sure. And see, that's the thing. My Spanish is very, very basic, and a lot of the cultural stuff I didn't learn because I was, just doing Spanish via Babbel.
Right.
So it was more language focused than culture focused. That's a good question. And I've heard in different Spanish, and please, can you actually ask your girlfriend this? Because I'm sure she would know. I've heard in different places in South America and then in Spain, some places they will use tú, which is the informal you, and usted in very different scenarios. So if you wouldn't mind asking that, because I'm genuinely curious, I could definitely also just ask one of my native Spanish speaker friends, but ask her and get back to us on the podcast because I'm sure we have some listeners out there that might be curious as well.
I was talking to her about I was telling her how I'm always shocked. Sorry, I'm writing down in different countries. I was telling her how it's always shocking to me how someone can learn a language just through school. And she said she went to a school that, she's from around here in Philadelphia. She went to a school that focused heavily on the speaking part and not on the grammatical part.
Which is great.
And she said she remembers having to give like a 40-minute presentation in Spanish and all that stuff. Mm-hmm. And so she's like, yeah, a lot of people from my school left actually being able to speak Spanish. And I was like, wow. It's like, that just blows my mind because, as I've mentioned many times, I've been in a similar situation and I can't speak much French, as you've noticed.
Right. But hey, you sure as hell can message in French.
That's true. That's true. I
was very impressed when we first got that message from him. I saw it. And I was like, oh, I really hope Jared takes the reins on this one. So that's good. Anyways, Jared, what untranslatable do you have for us today?
I have one more, and it's Soto. Do you know where Soto is spoken? Jeez.
No idea.
Soto is spoken in Lesotho, South Africa, and Zimbabwe. So it's a Southern African language. And the phrase is Hobua hase ho peta. And it literally means speaking is not an accomplishment. I disagree here at the Untranslatable Podcast.
That's true. That is true. Especially today for us for some reason. But anyways.
Yeah, really.
Yeah, neither of us could speak English today. Maybe it's because we had such crazy polyglot weekends, I guess.
Exactly.
Or something. Who knows? Okay, so I think does this mean like all talk, no action?
Essentially, yeah.
All right.
Great talkers are never great doers.
Right. Yeah, that's true. There's a beautiful Kendrick Lamar line that says, I don't talk about it, be about it. Which is how it should be, for sure.
Yeah.
Good. Okay, so I'll give you... Oh, yeah, I said we were going to do a sandwich. So let me give you the Czech one first.
Oh, yeah.
So, and this is a cool one. I like this one. Cesto, necesto, which means road or no road.
Like, is that like hell or high water almost? Where it's like we're doing this no matter what. Like, we're going to make this happen almost.
You know
road
what?
Or no road.
You know what? I'll give it to you.
The judges.
the untranslatable judges approve. And so cesto, ne cesto is basically, so road or no road refers to traveling on difficult roads with lots of obstacles. So that's why I would give the come hell or high water. So the word cesta means road. But there's technically, other than this idiom, there's no real word ne cesta. Right, but in Czech, you can put the ne on the beginning of the word and it negates it. Right,
right.
Like ja vím is I understand. Nevím means I don't understand. But I thought this one was a really cool. Exactly. So so I thought this was great, and I think this relates a lot to what we might be discussing later in terms of parallels between music and language learning. Yeah, sometimes you're going to feel frustrated. Either whether it's learning an instrument or learning how to speak a foreign language, and you just have to road or no road. You got to keep on keeping on.
Yeah, and it's even more satisfying when you do get it. Like I've been struggling with the Rondo alla Turca, which you recommended I learn how to play, and I have been learning it. And like I finally figured out this one part, and it's very satisfying.
Oh, for sure. Absolutely. Well, Jared, I have one more Spanish untranslatable for you.
Sí.
And here we go. It is friolero. Do you know what frio means?
No.
It's like cold or freezing.
Okay. I'm going to write that down. Friolero. I don't know what lero means either.
Well, if I told you, it blatantly gives away the untranslatable.
Oh, is it like cold shoulder?
No. So friolero is a person who is especially sensitive to cold water and temperatures.
Like everyone, all my family from Louisiana.
Exactly.
Friolero.
Exactly. There you go.
Do you know? But what does lero mean? Is that like sensitive or?
Well, no. I think that's like a person who does something.
Oh, okay.
Maybe. I think that's what that ending is for, because it's like what's a bolero in Spanish? I've heard that word before. Hold on.
Listen, I've had a lesson and a half. Bolero is a Spanish dance characterized by sharp turns, stamping of the feet, and sudden pauses in a position.
Oh, yeah, it's music. Yeah, it's music and also clothing. So never mind. I'm not really sure what the lero ending is, but I thought it had something to do with a person who does something, but I could be completely wrong about that, so my apologies.
Okay.
That's another question you can ask your girlfriend. Why is it called friolero? I'm going to give you all sorts of homework now that you're learning Spanish.
She's actually very much enjoyed teaching me Spanish. She loves it. So
it's really fulfilling. I've really enjoyed when people ask me, oh, teach me this in English or teach me that. So or in German as well. Well, great. Well, keep up the good work, Jared.
Thank you.
And Spanish is it's a beautiful language.
Yes.
As we've talked about many, many times. Music in Spanish is just absolutely amazing. So I think let's talk about music and language. Let's get into it.
Sure. First, let's get into our personal music histories. I started playing in quote unquote band in probably like late elementary school, maybe 4th or 5th grade, probably 4th grade.
Can you explain band to our international listeners out there? Because I'm not sure if they have band in schools like we do in the States.
Yeah, not a cool band.
not an epic rock band.
Yeah. So most schools in the U.S. have some sort of band program, which is essentially, a band is a group of people playing music together, and it's just like it's essentially just a class that teaches kids how to play instruments through, playing songs and stuff. And there are a bunch of different ones. I can get into some of I've been to, but like when you're in elementary school, it's more just essentially a class to teach people how to play instruments that they call band. Like you're not actually, I mean, you give performances and stuff, but it's not like that impressive. I mean, if I were a parent, hats off to my parents and all parents that had to go watch that garbage.
Right. What are some of the instruments that you can play in band?
The first instrument I think every child learns how to play in America is the recorder, the most annoying instrument on earth.
Yep.
But the popular band instruments are saxophone, clarinet, flute, percussion, trumpet.
Which you played.
I did play that. Not really trombone. There is obviously trombone's a big part of most bands, but I'm talking about like elementary school. Trombone might be a little too big and a little too complex, maybe.
Right.
Because you're both working with the embouchure, which is your mouth, and then also I think it's a little too much for like a 4th or 5th grader.
Right.
What are some other big ones?
As you get older, flute. Tuba.
Yeah, tuba. Yeah, you start to work in more of the brass instruments and bigger instruments as you get older. But I think the ones I listed, clarinet, saxophone, trumpet, flute, percussion, those are sort of the big starters for a lot of people.
Oh, definitely. For sure.
Maybe even not even saxophone. I'd just throw a clarinet. Usually saxophone players tend to start with clarinet. So I started with percussion. And, obviously everyone in 4th or 5th grade would want to choose that. It's
right.
You're just banging a bunch of stuff. It's fun.
Right.
But then, I went to a different school for middle school, and they asked, what instruments do you play? I said, I play percussion. I played in our percussion band. And so, they had me do, a quick little quote-unquote audition thing, and they're like, yeah, you're going to play something else. And so being me, I thought, I'll choose the trumpet. It's only 3 buttons. That seems easy.
Right. If only you knew.
Yeah, and so I started playing trumpet when I was in 6th grade, and I played that through to 10th grade. That was kind of much like my French lessons. I wish I was more dedicated to it, and I wish I cared more about it, because it was definitely more I didn't really practice. I was honestly, I was kind of embarrassed a little bit, to be walking around school carrying my trumpet case. That's probably part of the reason why I didn't practice enough, because I didn't want to take it home on the subway carrying my trumpet. I don't know. I don't even know what that was. But
I feel like that's a cool. I don't know. Maybe because it's different because I play guitar, but
right.
I always have a little pep in my step when I'm walking around carrying a guitar case.
I played trumpet for a bit, and I was in your standard band, which is just the sort of ensemble. But in in high school when I was in Germany, I also was in the jazz band. And so we played stuff like You Give Me Fever, for example. That was a song I remember that we would play.
That's a good one. Yep.
And nowadays, and then after 10th grade, I came back to the US and I didn't have to play an instrument. So I just kind of stopped, and I still have my trumpet. It's at my parents' house, and I constantly consider bringing it back, but I don't want my neighbors to call the cops on me.
Right. That's the only negative thing about brass instruments is they can be very, very loud.
Right.
When you practice.
Brad, our friend Brad, the silent third co-host of this podcast.
Right.
He also used to play trumpet in school, and he recently brought his from his mom's place, and he took a picture of it and sent it to me, and he was saying that he wants to get back into it, and I told him, I was like, you should you should find a teacher and start taking lessons, and he says, I think I will. I'm reading it right now. He's like, I think I'll pick it back up fairly easy once I get notes on how to read music back under my belt. And I said, yeah, but it's tough to actually improve on your own. And then he didn't respond to that because I don't think he was having it. But
right.
But because now that I've been playing piano for a couple months, I'm a professional. No, but yeah, I was like, I mean, I understand that you can sort of get back to where you were in 9th grade, but you're not it's, at least from what I've noticed, it's pretty hard to actually improve on your own. At least maybe it's not hard, but it takes way more time, I would say.
Well, see, here's the thing, and this is one early parallel between language and music, is that whether you want to, teach yourself a language or teach yourself an instrument, you need a teacher, or maybe not even a teacher, but a tutor or a friend or someone who kind of guides you along, because when you're learning something like a language or an instrument, the goal is to produce something correctly, right? With the language, it's obviously correct pronunciation, correct grammar, whatever. With an instrument, you want to be playing in the right pitch, the right rhythm, all that stuff, right? Mm-hmm. And you can get so caught up on the process of trying to produce this that you don't really hear or are aware of the actual thing you're producing, right? For music, you might not realize you're playing everything sharp or flat, right? Or you're rushing something, right? With a language, you might not realize that, I totally didn't conjugate that verb right there. Or, that's actually pronounced this way, not that way. I had many German students who would pronounce the EI and IEs opposite, Mm-hmm. So like Wien, which is German for Vienna, and then Wein, which is German for wine. Mm-hmm. And so, I would write Wien on the chalkboard, and they'd say, oh, blah, 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 Wein. And I would always have to be like, no, like it's Wien. And so, if you don't have a teacher or a friend or someone to assist you, it's going to take a lot longer to pick up on those things.
Yes. And my piano teacher often tells me this, is that it's also, you a lot of that is like the technique that it's not that you can't learn the technique on your own, but I mean, you can learn it much quicker if someone just tells you what it is.
Exactly.
And my piano teacher always tells me that it takes much longer to unlearn a mistake than it does to learn something correctly the first time. Mm-hmm. And so once you start learning a mistake, once you start learning a mistake, and that's how you play something. Like, for example, sometimes in songs, if I learn a song, I'll look at it once or twice and think I know how it goes, and I'll realize that I've been playing the wrong note or the wrong melody for the whole time, and that takes forever. And then it's just you've learned it like that so many times that it's muscle memory. So it's pretty quick if you're learning a song, at least for me, to not even have to look at the music. Not that it's memorized, but not to just have to stare note by note. But then you're just playing off a memory. And so you're not telling your hands what to do or your mouth what to do. It's just doing it. And then now you have to actively remind yourself not to do that instead of just doing it the right way. And so
exactly.
After all that, after I stopped playing trumpet, I kind of just stopped with music learning for until I started playing piano, which I started maybe 3 years ago at this point. And I'd always kind of admired piano, and I always thought it would be cool to learn. And when I moved here to Philadelphia, I when I first got here, not that much has changed. I had a lot of free time, and I was like, I'd be sitting down watching TV or something, and I'd be like, I could be doing something way more productive with my free time than just sitting here. And literally that day when I was just thinking about that, I was like, I'll just buy a keyboard. And so I went on Amazon, bought a Yamaha key. Maybe if you're British, a Yamaha. I bought a Yamaha keyboard, and I just started sort of looking up how to self-taught lessons online and stuff. But then honestly, within like a month, I could tell that if I actually, especially with an instrument like piano, where it's it's not like there's a lot of technique in what you're doing with your hands, a lot of sort of ways to reduce sort of like the fatigue in your hands by way you move and all that stuff, and how you hold your hand, just specifically how you form your hand. And so I was like, I feel like if I actually want to learn this, I need to find a teacher. And then I just Googled, piano teacher, and found my current teacher. But so I've been doing that for like 3 years, and it's been great. I love it. And now it makes me want to get back into trumpet, which I will do at some point. I just need to be living in a place that has a little bit more space between me and my neighbors than I currently do.
That's fair. And that's why I'm very lucky as a guitarist. Mm-hmm. I can really play almost anywhere. And I have my little traveler guitar here that even has a headphone jack where I can plug it in and get the sounds of an electric guitar. And I've played it at train stations, in hotel rooms where the walls were paper thin.
Right.
My neighbors in the hotel room were doing some naughty adult things while I'm sitting there playing my guitar.
Slipping on gator piss.
But
I mean that's also what I like about the keyboard too. I mean, it's not as portable, obviously, but you could play it anywhere. I usually don't put the headphones on. I don't like playing like that. Well, we'll also get into some of my shortcomings of my practicing, which is I often practice with a podcast playing in the background. Which
no,
I know,
bad.
I know,
that's
I know.
Why, Jared?
I have a real issue with I struggle for me to focus just with nothing going on in the background like that.
I mean,
like I'm always multitasking. Always,
right.
I always have headphones on or something.
Yeah,
I don't.
Yeah, that's
but
not
I never.
good.
I mean, I know. I never. I mean, this is almost impossible. Like I'm never listening to music while I practice piano. That's literally impossible for me to do.
Well, right. Well, that's like reading while like I cannot read and listen to like someone talking.
Right. I mean, I do that too. Like at work, I'll often, a lot of my job involved reading articles and stuff, and I would have podcast on while I do that too.
That's really fascinating. I can't do that. But yeah. But I think let's get a little bit into. Well, I guess just I'll give our listeners also just the quick background of my music learning journey as well, and then I would like to discuss some parallels, some similarities between learning an instrument and learning about music and learning languages, which I think will be very insightful. So, just the quick story for me was, I had always my mom is a great singer, and I would always sing with her when I was a little kid. And then when I was probably 8 or 9, there was a guy, I still remember this, there was a guy named Johnny Lang, who's a blues guitar player, that somehow for some reason got like a special like spot on Disney. And I remember I was at my grandma's house in Pinckney, Michigan, watching Disney, and he came on with his black Stratocaster and was just wailing on it, and I thought it was the coolest thing in the world, right? Mm-hmm. And then what really did it for me, though, was I was in the car with my dad, and he pops in. This was, our younger listeners maybe won't be able to relate to this, so I apologize, but he popped in a cassette tape in the cassette player. I know, right? And it was of Stevie Ray Vaughan's Texas Flood, and it was I believe it's the opening track. I could be wrong, but it's the single called Texas Flood, which is the same name as the album. And the way Stevie Ray Vaughan played guitar, it was just so raw, a lot of vibrato, and to me, it was just one of those times in your life where you hear something for the first time, and I was just like, I want to do that. That's what I want to do.
Yeah.
Because I was kind of interested in learning drums maybe. But that automatically just drew me to the guitar.
I'm sure your parents are very happy that you went towards guitar and not drum.
I would say so, for sure. And then what's funny is, so I think I picked up the guitar in 3rd grade. I was 10 years old. I got an electric guitar for Christmas. I remember I could not sleep at all that night. I was super excited. And I came downstairs in the morning, opened it up. My parents had bought this guitar from like a Sears magazine. It was like a guitar amp set, right? And the guitar was a smaller scale guitar, and it wouldn't work. Like you could play it, but like the guitar and the amp didn't work. I don't know if it was the amp or I don't really know. But we took it into the music shop. It's called Music Go Round in Ann Arbor, and we showed the guys the guitar and the amp, and they said, well, if your son really is actually serious about playing, you should really just get him a full-size guitar and a small little practice amplifier and go from there. And so that's what we did. So my parents ended up returning the other guitar to Sears. I think it was actually a Yamaha, which they actually make some decent instruments though. And so I got basically a black Stratocaster copy by this company called Austin. I don't even know if they're still around anymore. But so that was my first guitar. I wanted to play blues, so I learned some basic blues stuff.
I actually had a kind of similar experience with the piano. My first Yamaha was a 76 key non-weighted keyboard. So weighted means
you got to get the weighted, man.
Right. Weighted means if it's non-weighted, that means like you can't do dynamics. It's just either note or no note. You can't do like quiet or louder.
Right.
And my piano teacher said the same thing. She's like, if you actually want to learn piano and use a keyboard, you have to have full 88 keys.
Yep, and weighted.
You have to have weighted so you can actually do dynamics.
Right, which is a very important part of music as well. But yeah, and so what's funny though is I had to do recorder as well for music class when I was younger.
Yeah, I did that too.
And then the year after I had got my first electric guitar, our school, it was really cool. I still remember the school day where they brought in all the students, all the fourth grade students into the auditorium. And they said, all right, if you want to play band, you go here. If you want to play an orchestra, you go here. I was way more interested in strings and orchestra. So I went the orchestra route. And, oh, shoot, I'm trying to remember. It doesn't matter. I was trying to remember the teacher's name. But Mr. Deloria comes out with a violin, and he's playing some really beautiful classical music. And then he grabs a different violin, and he says, he plays like some fiddle music, like some country music on a violin, right? And he asks everybody, he says, so guys, what's the difference between a violin and a fiddle? And do you know the difference, Jared?
Fiddles are played by hillbillies.
Yeah. That's basically the difference. I mean, they're both
totally
actually
joking.
they're both. I know you were, but the funny thing is that a fiddle is just a violin. Just the styles of music are different.
How it's played is what makes the difference. Yeah,
because I think I even raised my hand. And I was like, there's different strings. Like I was in fourth grade. I had no idea. And so, anyways, I picked the cello. And at our school, it was compulsory to play an instrument in fourth and fifth grade. You had to do the 2 years, right? Mm-hmm. And the first year, I don't remember who our teacher was, but he was a great teacher. I really enjoyed it. In fifth grade, I didn't enjoy the teacher. I was getting more into guitar anyways. Right. And so the deal with my parents was, all right, if you quit cello, you have to continue with guitar. In hindsight, I wish I would have stuck with cello. But, when you're 11 or 12 years old, and you have sports and other extracurricular activities, right, you don't understand those things. But yeah. But
and the guitar's cooler.
Well, I think the cello is...
I'm saying for 10-year-old you.
Oh, for sure.
I mean, I'm not saying now. I'm saying, right, like when you're a child, the guitar is way cooler.
Right, and the cello is just such a beautiful, expressive instrument. But anyways, let's discuss some similarities between music and language.
Have you ever had any interest in like seriously learning a new instrument?
Yeah, of course.
Like what? What's next for you?
Mandolin. I have a mandolin back in the States.
Oh, it's just another form of a guitar.
Kind of. Okay. I mean, I'm definitely more interested in stringed instruments because I think I can conceptualize playing them, and it's a little easier going from those. Whereas if I try to play like a saxophone or a trombone or something, I'd have no idea where to even begin.
Right, you're starting from scratch.
Right. But mandolin has always been one I've wanted to learn. I have a sitar as well, but can only play like the intro to Norwegian Wood by the Beatles on the sitar. That's about all I can do on the sitar.
The sitar is that giant thing?
Yeah, it's an Indian instrument. Mm-hmm.
Oh, yeah, I'm looking at it now.
Using Hindustani music, yeah. Mm-hmm. It's great. But anyways, let's talk about some similarities and some links between music and language because there are a lot of them. And I have to say, one thing I've noticed as a language teacher is my students who are musical, whether they sing or play an instrument, I don't know if this is, a mutual relationship or not, but it seems like they always have a better ear and generally have better pronunciation. And I don't know if it's because of the music and their ears are maybe a little bit more sensitive towards things, but that's just one observation I've made in my 4 to 5 years of language teaching.
I would say that you're right. I would say that there is a definite connection between those two. I mean, you're just it's whether it's they're aware of it or not, you're just naturally required to have a sharper ear as a musician. You have to be aware of a lot of subtle changes or subtle mistakes or whatever. And even if I think that's very true. I would 100% agree with that. Actually, I'll give you this. In a study in 2010, it was shown that people who studied music before the age of 7 developed larger vocabularies and better understanding of grammar than those who didn't. It's also commonly thought that those who learn a musical instrument at a young age, it's easier to learn a second language later in life.
Interesting.
So I think that kind of goes along with it.
Right. So to all of our listeners out there with children, put your babies in music classes. It'll be well worth it in the future. Most definitely. The other thing that I think is a very, very clear parallel between language and music is both are very clear forms of communication, right? I mean, language itself is it's kind of weird when you think about it, right? Like we use our vocal cords to push sound waves through the air. They go into somebody's ear, and those abstract sounds mean words that have all these other meanings that evoke feelings, right? Of happiness, anger, disgust, whatever, right? And music, it's kind of the same thing, just usually through either lyrics or through an instrument, be it piano, trumpet, guitar, whatever. And I think it's really amazing that you can kind of use both of these forms, language and music, for communication and also for social bonding. I think people bond over language and bond over music.
Yeah. I wrote down music is a universal language. And I mean, I think a great example of that is, as good an example as that as any, is that like you don't need to, it's a universal language in that even if you don't understand the lyrics of a song, a lot of times through, tone or dynamics or speed or, tempo, that's the word I should use, tempo of a song, you can understand the emotion that someone's trying to portray. And you can, and whether you understand the song or not, the lyrics does not prevent you from like bopping along to a song. Like we listen to a bunch of songs that we have no idea what they're saying, but we will bop along to it and be like, "Oh, this is great! Oh, this is like, such a happy song!" Or "Wow, this is a real depressing song," even though you have no idea what they're saying. Right.
And the other thing too, speaking of music as language, music itself is kind of its own language, and it's like you have to learn a foreign language. Yeah. Even just being able to talk about music. I remember when I was taking guitar lessons, when I first began my guitar lessons, I was taught by a guy who himself was self-taught, and was a very intelligent man and definitely knew a lot of musical terms. But, you have to really have a much deeper understanding of music to communicate with other musicians, right? Like I couldn't jam with you and say, yeah, I'm playing the note on the 5th fret on the 5th string, and then I'm moving to the 6th fret on the 3rd. That makes no sense to use a pianist, right?
Right.
So I'd have to say, here I'm playing a D note, here I'm playing a G note, D major, G major. You have to learn all these very specific terms, and it's a language within itself. And then being able to read music, I learned how to read music. Well, it's kind of strange. So I learned how to read treble clef with cello when I was in 4th and 5th grade. Then I stopped, right? And then when I started studying music in undergrad, I had to learn how to read music for guitar. And the difficulty with reading music for guitar is that you have so many different positions where you can play something. Mm-hmm. So you have to really know where the notes are and kind of have an idea of where this is supposed to be played on the instrument.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, when two things. One is that I fully agree with you about the music being a language thing. I mean, like the notes are essentially the alphabet, and then everything around the notes telling you how to play the notes is sort of the grammar of how to pronounce the notes that you're playing. I was actually the same way. It was actually kind of surprising to me. When I started playing piano, I'd already been playing I'd already played trumpet in the past, so I knew I wasn't coming at fully from zero. I at least knew where the notes were on the treble clef, but like the bass clef, I'd never learned, so that was brand new to me. Like I had to learn the bass clef and where notes were on the bass clef, and that in itself was like a whole new beginning. But once you put it together, obviously it starts to make sense. But it is really like learning a new alphabet. Even though I knew half of it, and I thought, I can pick it up. It's like, no, I mean, the notes are in a different spot on the bass clef. You have to like sort of, recalibrate your brain for it.
Exactly. And I think another connection with music and language is that, like you mentioned, these are both great ways to kind of keep your brain fit. There's actually been quite a few studies that have delved into the links between learning music or a second language. And what's interesting is a lot of these studies have shown that it lowers the risk of dementia in old age. So to keep your brain healthy, pick up an instrument, learn a foreign language, and keep your brain fit. And I think it's also good because music and language both can really broaden your horizons about things. I think really, like, I remember talking to somebody and they said, well, what's the point of learning music, right? Like, why get a major in classical guitar studies, right? Which is a valid question, right? But the thing is, like, the one thing that I learned while studying music is you really learn to appreciate the beauty in the world. Mm-hmm. Whether it's through classical music or jazz or rock, or doesn't really matter the genre, but I think that we need these humanity studies, especially for children, because it gives you, I think, a deeper appreciation of the world and things around you and culture. And I think language does the same thing.
Yeah, and they both help you understand a culture more. Even music, like, a lot of, for example, Latin music is very dance based, and you can hear that in the melodies, where more than I don't know, something else. I can't think of another example, but it's just like you can hear that in the melodies, and you're like, oh, why is it that all this music sounds like this? Is it because a lot of these Latin countries have a huge, dancing, dancing is a huge part of their culture and all, and something like that, and it does help you understand the culture better. Another thing I want to say about the dementia thing you mentioned is I feel like I've seen that happen in reality. Both of my grandmothers are still alive. One of them is in her maybe mid 80s, and she's starting to lose her memory. It's very obvious that she forgets obvious stuff, and my other grandmother is in her late 90s. I don't know the exact age, but like 95 to 7, somewhere in between there.
Okay, nice.
And she is sharp as a Ginsu. And I think a lot of that has to do with the fact that she plays piano almost every single day.
That's awesome.
And, she has an upright piano at her house. That's how you play every day. You kind of have to have one. But she also, for the longest time, when she was younger, she was the pianist for her church too. So she was, actively performing and keeping it up for not just for her own sake, but for, to perform.
That's fantastic.
And she still plays all the time. Like, if I'll go to her house, it will not be weird for her to just be sitting there playing on her piano. And
does she give you tips?
I haven't played around her. I've never played for her since
you should.
I just never really had an opportunity, really.
What do you mean there's an upright piano in her house?
Well, that's true. It's not that I haven't had an opportunity. It's that I haven't made an opportunity. I could easily make the opportunity. Because, like, now that my parents have a house there, she's more often coming to my parents' house, or I'm more often going to her house, like if there's like, for Christmas, once a bunch of families there and stuff. But, I could easily make the time to go there. It's not hard. I just haven't, made the effort.
But see,
she would love it because I used to, when I was a kid, and I used to spend a lot of time over the summers at my grandparents' house, and I used to, as Michael Zupstrom would say, noodle around on her piano and just like make up melodies and stuff. Obviously, I didn't know notes or anything at that point.
Right.
But she used to always tell my parents that they should put me in piano classes and stuff, and they never did. But obviously, I learned other instruments and stuff.
Right.
And I think she would definitely very much appreciate hearing me play that. She would love it.
But see, that's another parallel that I didn't even think of. But children, especially, are very good with language and with music in creating, even though they don't know the kind of meta concepts of, what is a note, what is a pitch, what is a scale, what is a rhythm. They might know some very basics, but it's the same with language, right? Children are obviously fluent in a language before they know, what a subject is, or what a verb is, or what, an infinitive is. So I think that's another parallel that, like, I think there's something about music and about language that is just innate within all of us. And when I say all of us, I mean all of us. I don't care if you tell me, oh, well, I'm not, Chad, I'm not musical at all. I guarantee you, if you hear a beat, you probably can bob your head to the beat or tap your foot. Now, it doesn't mean that you're going to be an amazing dancer, or if you were to pick up an instrument, you could automatically play everything rhythmically perfect. But I think those are just two very innate human traits with language and with music.
Well, yeah, like when I was noodling around on my grandma's piano when I was younger, obviously I didn't properly know how to stay within the right chords and chord progressions and all that stuff. But I did get the concept of like how to make a melody. And not even that it was question and answer, or not even that it had a form to it, but that in my, like, there was that natural sense of like, just like, it was less than making proper, like a proper form to a music, but it was more than just walking up to the piano and doing like I wasn't just slamming my hand. I wasn't just slamming my hand onto the keyboard, to make music. I was actually, in my mind attempting some sort of melody and some sort of like it was more than just slamming my hands and less than actually making proper music. So there was some innate understanding and I'd heard music all the time at that age too. So you get it. And it's like, even if you can't make it, you get like what they're doing, and you understand, like, even if you don't realize you do. I think a lot of people do.
Right. And what's crazy though is one of my guitar teachers in undergrad, he told me that music is such an innate human trait that, like, if you're performing a classical guitar piece and you hit the wrong notes, like, babies in the audience might even start to cry. Like they and I know that's kind of sounds like an extreme example, but I think it's kind of true. Like, we hear things and we kind of have an idea of when it's whatever quote unquote right or wrong is.
Right.
I think we can tell. Now, what's also fascinating about language and about music, and another similarity, is that on a very, very basic level, music and language are both compositional. What I mean by this is language and music are made up of small parts. With music, obviously, it's pitches and rhythms and melodies. With languages, it will be, words,
phrases,
sentences, verbs, everything like that. And what's interesting is language and music by itself, if you, really look at it, if you take it, kind of like under a microscope, if you just have a note by itself, it's not really music per se, right? If you just have a note. And it's the same with language. If you just have one word by itself, it doesn't really mean much. But once you combine these notes and once you combine these words, it's really when you start making sentences and stories and pieces of music. And,
for sure.
So you could look at music at its most basic level, consisting of, individual notes, just like we have, language at its most basic level would just be words. But once you put all those words together or those notes together is how we really communicate.
Yeah. And in much like, when you're building a sentence with a language, a phrase or multiple phrases builds a sentence, which is almost the exact same terminology you'd use for music. Yep. Like phrases build the song. And they say this phrase, which is a section of music, and or sections they use, like A, B, which is like a paragraph. And it's really, it's like writing an essay or something like that.
Absolutely.
One thing I love about both learning a language and learning an instrument is constantly setting goals for myself. Like, I have all these short-term goals for my music, my piano playing, like learn this song, learn this, learn how to, learn these scales so I can do different chord progressions.
Right.
But then also I have sort of more, what's the word I'm looking for? Nebulous goals, sort of more
lofty goals.
Loftier goals for the far future. Like I've spent a good amount of time at like local bars that have live music at them. That seems like so much fun. I would love to do that. And every time I go there, every time I go to places like that, there's always a part in the back of my head that's like, you could do this. Give it like a blah more years. Oh, I'm sure I could. But and I like to, like, for example, when I went to this coffee desk concert or whatever they call it, it was a singer, a bass/guitar. He did both depending on the song. There was a keyboardist, and then there was a drummer. And, I was looking at all of them. It was not hard to look at all of them. But obviously I spent a good amount of time looking at the keyboardist because that's what I would like to do someday. And I was like, oh, I could do that. It's so cool watching him. And, especially me that, much like, one of the biggest fears people have, even, they always say, more people fear giving a speech than they do, than they fear giving, than they fear dying, for example.
Right.
And I don't really fear giving a speech like that. It makes me nervous like the next person, but I really do fear performing. And I hate performing. I sweat profusely even just playing our Jam Track a couple episodes ago. By the way, I listened to Jam Track 3 the other day. I don't know how you like that one more than Jam Track 4. It's a mess to me.
Well, no, bits and pieces.
Okay, because it just sounds like so much more of a mess to me. And I made a couple of mistakes in there, timing and note wise, that I didn't make in the later one.
You did, but I wasn't gonna, just roast you based on those mistakes.
I like the goal of even just trying to get over that fear of performing. Like,
Right.
Even when like my sister was here, or like when people are here and I like play just with one person or standing behind me, I get way more uncomfortable and
Sure.
make way more mistakes than it's just me in my room by myself
Right.
playing. And I like thinking that that's a fear that I can easily overcome, and it is.
You definitely can. And I think people also have that same fear when they learn a foreign language. When I first
for sure.
came here, I had practiced my very basic phrases, and there were some times where I would really, really hesitate to say them. And I completely understand what you mean regarding performing, Jared. Like, for me, I don't really get afraid to perform anymore. But for me, I'm just kind of like, well, I used to practice so much, and I don't have the time to practice like that. I know where I was at when I was probably at my best. I would say it was probably between my freshman year of college and my senior year of college was when it was honestly to the point where I could hum something or hear something and basically play it. Now, I couldn't, maybe if it was like a complicated chord progression, I couldn't do that. But if it was like a melody, I could figure it out fairly quickly. I can still kind of do that. But for example, last week, I took my guitar into class on Thursday, and we sang "We Are the Champions" as a class. Well, I learned how to play that song the day before, right? And old me, my senior year of college, I probably could have learned that the day before and not made any mistakes. Whereas when I was playing it for the students, I made some mistakes. But the other problem was, too, I wasn't just playing it. I was also facilitating it, making sure they were singing the words.
Yeah, you're teaching. You can't just perform and sort of zone out.
Right, exactly.
You still have to be, multiple parts of your brain are going off at once. It's like me listening to a podcast while I...
Right. Well, and the other thing is, too, like, it's a whole different... I feel in a lot of ways very limited when I perform by myself. Because one, I'm not one of those guitar players that is a great finger-style guitarist where I can basically make my guitar sound like an orchestra, right? I can play, I can finger pick, and I can do things like this, but I don't feel comfortable to, a really great finger-style guitar player will have the bass line, the melody, and the harmonies all within their right and left hand and doing this. Basically, they're playing at least, 3 to 6 strings at a time. Whereas when you're strumming chords to accompany a song, to me as a guitar player, I can play more than that, so I get kind of bored with it. But I'm not at the level anymore where I could just bust out this crazy solo fingerstyle guitar that has the bass line and the melody and everything. But it's good for your brain, and it also, there's been a lot of studies that show that playing music and playing music and learning and speaking languages activates similar parts of the brain. And there have been some cases of people who've had a really severe stroke and they can't talk. But one of the things they do in therapy is they sing. And some people have no problem singing, but they still can't speak. And what's also interesting too, I saw this video of this older gentleman, probably in his 90s, and his son brought him a guitar. And there were these 2 other old guys playing saxophone and trumpet, I believe. And he was busting out all these jazz standards that he used to play back in the day. And who knows the last time that guy played or practiced guitar. And it just goes back to show you it activates a different part of your brain. And I know at least when I'm really playing and I'm not thinking about what I'm doing, it's kind of like a weird subconscious thing, like when you speak in like language at a native level.
Yeah, for sure. For sure. It's really exciting for me to think that I'm going to be playing like piano for the rest of my life.
Sure.
Obviously, I could easily if I wanted to, and I think I will. And that's very exciting for me. I like the thought of that.
Oh, definitely. You know what else is exciting, Jared?
I do. One of our favorite things, songs that are also sang in Spanish.
For sure. I was going to say songs in more than one language, but
yes.
absolutely.
Oh, that too. Yeah.
Absolutely. So let's move on to our song of the pod, which is by an artist named Prince Royce. And Jared admitted to me, which I already knew this about Jared, but he admitted he's not a fan of covers.
No.
I'm kind of the same unless it's a good version. And I think this version of Stand By Me is really interesting.
Actually, that concert I went to the other day, they did a couple covers. And it was great because one of them was, what's that Leonard Skinner? A Cowboy, Dead or Alive.
Okay.
And their covers were so good that like you didn't even recognize what it was until like he got to at least for Dead or Alive, until he got to the chorus. And like they completely changed this, the tempo. They sort of changed up the melody a bit. And he slowed it down a lot. And he sort of, and I did really enjoy his covers. And because they're all sort of surprising. Where it's like he was for the Dead or Alive song. He's like, I know everyone will know this. Feel free to sing along. And it was like silence until he got to the chorus, and then everyone was like, yeah.
And that's the beauty with covers, There's a really great, I forget the band now, but there's a really great cover of Enter Sandman by Metallica, but it's playing in a funk style, which is really awesome. But yeah, so this one is Stand By Me.
I will say this. I do prefer those covers than a cover that's just reproducing a song.
Right. Well, yeah, it's like why you're most likely not going to play it better than the original. So yeah, why bother? I agree.
Like it's fun to learn, but it's weird to perform just the exact same.
Exactly. Unless you're in a cover band, which is a whole different thing. But anyways, let's talk more about this Stand By Me cover. So
yeah.
We have kind of more of a Latin vibe to it with the instrumentation in the background. I love the way that Prince Royce code switches between English and Spanish.
Yep.
Which is great.
Do you know where he's from?
I do not.
Okay, he's from New York, but he's at least both of his parents, so him also are Dominican, so they're from the Dominican Republic. So that's where the effortless Spanish would come in. I would assume it definitely is where it comes in.
And I love the fact that the what's usually the bass line, doot 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 doot. That they play that with, I think it's a baritone saxophone.
Okay.
It's definitely a saxophone. But it sounds great. And it's different than having the bass in the background, which is kind of cool. And it already gives it, from the get-go, it gives it a different vibe.
Yeah. And we've talked a lot through different songs where they subtly code switch in songs that I love. One, I love it because it's impressive. You're a bilingual person, but also it gives you so much more. I mean, not really in this song because he's just covering a song. But what I do like about the code switching of languages in the song is it gives you so much more variety and options as far as words to use and how to put words together. So, like, as I mentioned a long time ago, say you're trying to put together a line, and the English word doesn't fit. So you put in like the Spanish word or vice versa. The Spanish word doesn't fit as well, but the English word has one less syllable, so it fits better.
Sure.
And I love that ability to switch back and forth. And most people, because you're writing, saying a sentence, through music, through context clues, even if you don't know the word or you don't fully get it, you still kind of get what they're getting at.
Sure. Well, especially if it's a cover, He says, even in the first couple lines of the song, when the night has come and the land is dark, y la luna es la luz. Oh, I didn't catch the last part. My Spanish isn't that great. But yeah, so he's switching in between English and Spanish, and it sounds great. And I don't know what it is about Spanish, but to me, when it's sung, I think it is one of the most beautiful languages. To listen to. I mean, it's just fantastic. And
I think because as a language, not even just as a speaking language, a big part of it is making it sound nice, and connecting words so they flow properly. So, even before you add in the singing, they're already talking in a way that it's going to flow almost like a song already.
Right. Exactly.
Yeah. So it fits very, very nicely with So this is who originally sings "Stand by Me."
Oh, jeez. That's
I'll pull it up.
I should know this. I'm not sure.
Ben E. King? Huh. Is that who it is?
Okay. Could be.
But yeah, I mean, it's a song that's been around for forever.
Right.
And everyone, I'm sure, has heard that song before. Yeah, I think Ben E. King is the original.
Yeah, that sounds about right. But yeah, it's a fantastic song. Stand By Me. The cover is by Prince Royce. Check it out, especially if you enjoy music en español, in Spanish. It is absolutely fantastic. So you can find that on our Twitter page, Untranslatable1, or on our YouTube channel, Untranslatable Podcast. Check it out. We hope you can pick up some new Spanish words. You know, that is one of our many goals and missions here as a podcast, is to expose all of our listeners out there to new words in foreign languages. We try to be very unbiased. I have to really give Jared a lot of credit because he always has some very diverse, untranslatable phrases out there. So it's absolutely fantastic. And check out our songs.
Oh, sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off.
You're good. Great. Check out our Songs of the Pod to get some extra exposure to different languages and also different cultures as well. It's absolutely fantastic.
Yeah, I try my hardest not to just focus on the same languages that always come to mind, and I actively do like Google, Asian languages or African languages and try to find different ones.
Absolutely.
¿Qué más? ¿Qué más? That's Spanish
what
for
else?
what else?
What more?
Oh,
yeah,
nice.
yeah.
So you chose the Song of the Pod today, and I thought it was a very fitting choice because we're now doing Spanish Word of the Pod, as I alluded to at the beginning of the episode. I've started learning some Spanish, and I've got a lot of phrases. And before I even started learning, someone showed me a video of, it was actually my girlfriend. She showed me a video of this guy who is Dominican from New York that was telling some funny story. He's a comedian. He was telling some funny story about how one of his friends got into some issue and that his grandma or aunt or something was helping him, and he went to his grandma and he's like, abuela, which is Spanish for grandma.
Yeah.
He's like, blah 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 needs your help, and she's like, okay, get my chancletas.
Right, her slippers.
Oh yeah, and that's the word of the pod is chancletas. I love that word. When I heard it, I was like, what is that? And she's like, that means slippers. I was like, oh, that's a great word. I found out actually chancletas is not, I mean, it is a word for slippers. But the word for slippers, like the at least the base word, is chancla. And chancletas is essentially saying like my little slippers. In German you'd add chien to the end of words to say like little something.
Exactly.
Yeah, or line. And so that's the first word of the. Actually, also perfect for you because you're a big slipper proponent. You have a lot of grandpa slippers and dad slippers that you wear around.
I mean, I have one pair of chancletas here, but yeah.
Yeah, but I've always taken note of your slippers because they tend to be... The main reason I call them dad slippers is because they're like those leather slip-on ones that my dad always...
I wonder what happened to those, because I had those in college, and then they disappeared, or... I have no idea. I need to get another pair of those.
The only reason I call them dad slippers is because my dad had a very similar or same style, the exact same style of slippers when I was growing up. But yeah, that word has stuck in my head, and it was just it's also a great example of just how beautiful like the Spanish language is. It's so fun to say, and it sounds so nice.
Yeah, it's a great language. Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
That's my first. Spanish word of the pod. From now on, there'll be more apropos to the topics, like yours are, with the Czech word of the pod. But I just love that word so much, and I wanted to share it because I've been saying it as much as I can.
They don't have to be apropos. I think sometimes it's good to have some off the wall ones like chancletas, which is great. Absolutely, yeah. And my Czech word of the pod today, Jared, is spojení. And spojení, I will just tell you what it means. Spojení is Czech for connection. Okay. I have chosen this word because this episode we've been talking quite a bit about similarities and connections between language and music. So I thought that would be fitting. And I'm pretty sure I have used the words music and language before as Czech words of the pod. The word for language in Czech is jazyk, which is interesting because that's also the Czech word for tongue. And then the word for music is hudba.
Hudba.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, and food is jídlo. I don't know, this came to my mind.
Yeah, it is. It's an important one. Absolutely. And the other thing too, with language and music is there's so many different types of music and types of language. It's always cool to kind of wrap your ear around the different sounds. And I think that's one other spojení or connection between language and music.
Yeah. I'm with
Jared, I have to say, I'm always happy when we do music topics because I have music jokes up the wazoo.
Oh, I can imagine.
I wish these were originals, but I can't take credit for them as originals. But here we go.
Do it. No one will know.
That's true. You could probably just Google the jokes though and find them on our website. So here we go. What type of music are balloons afraid of?
I don't know. What kind?
Pop music. What part of a turkey is musical?
I don't know.
The drumstick.
Oh. You could have used, I guess, also chicken for that.
Another animal joke for you, Jared. What is the musical part of a snake?
The rattle.
Oh, that works. That's great. I was going to say the scales.
Oh, that's even better, because all snakes have scales. Not all snakes have rattles.
Exactly. And continuing with the animal theme, what do you call a cow that can play a musical instrument?
Elefunky.
I mean, that would be an elephant, not a cow.
Oh.
A musician.
That shows how close I pay attention.
Oh, that's great. That's great. All right. Good. All right. So those are our jokes of the pod. And now time to leave our listeners with a quote of the pod. And I think throughout this episode, there have been a lot of similarities with music and with language. And the biggest similarity to me is just the fact that both of them can bring so much joy and you can learn so much in your life. So if there's anything you all take away from this episode today, is I really hope this will motivate you to get excited about learning another language or picking up an instrument, and also understanding the benefits of languages and music. So really don't take for granted the beauty, the fun, and the joy. And I think it far surpasses the frustration and the difficulties of learning an instrument or a language.
Yeah, nothing good comes easy.
That is true. And I think when you learn a language or an instrument or both of them, you can really break all the dishes.
You betcha. For sure. Well done.
Absolutely. So we hope you all have enjoyed this episode and learned some new similarities between music and language. And we hope that you all are inspired, motivated, and excited to either learn a new language or learn a new instrument or continue on your musical or linguistic journey. And let us know what instruments you are learning or you currently play, or the languages you are learning or currently speak on untranslatablepodcast@gmail.com. You can slide into our DMs on Twitter, Untranslatable1. Also, check out our Instagram for exciting pictures, good clips, especially of ones when Jared likes to talk shit about me while I get my pomlaska. Also, that smile was too beautiful, man. Oh, man. Too great. I hope you know that smile is going to become a meme. Just be ready.
I
have something in the works.
I'm okay with that.
So, yeah. So check out all of our different social media channels. We would really appreciate it. And we cannot thank you all enough for your support, all of our international listeners around the world.
You betcha.
We hope that you bring as much joy. We hope that we bring as much joy into your lives with our podcast as you do having us having you as listeners. Sorry, I can't speak English today. Anyways, we thank you all so much.
Gator piss.
Keep your eyes out for exciting and fun new content coming out, especially the tour guide editions with some exciting and new information for everybody. So, as we say here at the Untranslatable Podcast, gracias and děkujeme.